Welcome to episode 75 of the Celebrating Differences podcast. Our guest today is Mitch Solomon, former judge, and he's got an interesting story, but it comes down to people just want to be heard. So let's go see what's going on with Mitch Solomon. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Ani Colt. Ani?
Hi, it's great to be back. We had kind of a break from doing these podcasts because of the local election in Austin and actually national election. So we're getting back to it, and we're in the holidays. It's Christmas is soon and Hanukkah is going on. You'll see our guest has some of our holiday teddy bears behind him, just to let you know.
All right, so let's get to our guest. His name is Mitch Solomon. He's a former municipal judge in the city of Austin, and he's been around a while. So we met him in Tai Chi. So we'll be talking about lots of things before this day is over. And there we go. Mitch, how are you?
I'm wonderful. It's nice to be here.
Doing good.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
So what year were you born?
I was born in 1953.
1953. Okay.
69 years old.
69. That
Still
was...
having a hard time believing I'm 69 years old.
So that was Korean War time, somewhere around in there.
So, yeah, a little after the Korean.
So you're old enough to have been right there for Vietnam.
Right there for Vietnam.
And those kind of things. Where did you grow up, Mitch?
I grew up in Houston, Texas, in Linkwood.
Lakewood in Houston, Texas.
Linkwood.
Okay.
Linkwood?
Linkwood.
Linkwood.
It was right. I grew up on pretty much on South Braeswood Boulevard in Houston.
Okay.
So what was that neighborhood like?
It was a nice neighborhood. It was a middle class neighborhood. I could walk to school or ride my bike to elementary school.
Did you?
Sometime.
Occasionally.
Occasionally.
Okay.
Sometime. I guess my mom wasn't working, so she would take me to elementary school sometimes, or most of the time I'd walk. What I remember is being able to walk to school. I was maybe 5 or 6, 7 blocks away from elementary school. And once you got off my street, which was a busy street, there was not really any traffic, so I could ride my bike or walk.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I had one older sister who was like 4 years older, so I had to follow her path.
4 years is a lot of years at that time.
4 years is a lot of years. Well, it was really 3.5, but it was like she was 4 years ahead of me in school. But,
okay.
I still had to follow her, and a lot of the teachers remembered her. So
And compared you to her.
And compared me, so I had to put up with that.
I have a 4-year older brother and a 4-year younger sister, so we had some interesting, interchanges there with the teachers.
Well, at one point I became a middle child, but I didn't become a middle child till I was 13 and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
Just in the midst of puberty.
That's right.
Just what you needed.
Just what I needed. I was actually, my mom was pregnant and was sitting on it's called the bima, which is like at the front of the temple when I was becoming a bar mitzvah.
Ah. Okay.
So that was a little odd.
Odd.
But when she had my little brother, it's like she was pretty old at that time for having a kid. So it's like she had the kid, my brother, and I had to take care of him pretty much. I would get up with him at night and change his diapers, and it seems like I was taking care of him. So it was a learning experience also.
A learning experience. And what did you learn, Mitch?
Well, I thought I learned how to take care of kids, but then I didn't quite remember when I had my own.
Okay.
So, whatever I learned didn't really, go forward to when I had my own kids. So.
Did you learn responsibility?
I probably didn't have a lot of responsibility, but I took it upon myself to be responsible, I think.
Okay.
I think I would think of myself as a responsible kid. Mm-hmm. So, and I think my mom needed the help, and so I was glad to help. And it was my little brother. So I always wanted a little brother, just not quite, after that much time. So I took care of him, and as I grew up and he got older, my friends would come by the house, and he'd hang on my leg or hang on my friend's legs until I left, and so he was maybe 4 when I left for college.
Yeah.
So I regret that. I didn't really keep that much in touch with him. The only time I came home was for summers. And if I came home for the summers, and it was the only time I would see him. So I wouldn't see him for 8 or 9 months during the year. So we weren't real close, but we were trying to get closer now.
Oh, great. So where'd you go to college?
I went to college at UT. I was an undergraduate at UT, and I went to law school at UT. At that time, UT was quite a bargain.
Yeah.
I thought about. I was one of those kind of, like I said, it was the early 70s when I was going off to college. So I was thinking maybe I wanted to go to Berkeley. Do that sort of
Okay.
thing, where things were happening. But I looked at what it would cost to go to Berkeley and what it would cost to go to UT, and I decided I better just go to UT because I think my tuition was less than $150 a semester.
Wow.
So you couldn't beat that, and housing was pretty inexpensive also, really. I lived in nice housing and places I later ended up suing, but that was okay.
Okay.
But it was, I ended up, I lived at Dobie for my first year when I came here, which
That's
was
one of the big dormitories, right?
big dormitory, and it was a private dorm, but it was just a block off campus. So it was relatively new at that time. So I got to live there. Like I said, later on, I ended up getting to sue them. But that was many years later.
Yeah. Okay. So did you specialize in anything in law school?
In law school, I thought I was going to be a criminal lawyer.
Okay.
I thought I would defend people's rights, make sure that everybody who was not guilty would get their day in court, or even if they were guilty, I guess they'd get their day in court. And so if I specialized in anything, it was criminal law. And I figured when I got out of law school, I would go be a criminal lawyer, defend people's rights. And then I got out of law school and immediately moved to Colorado to follow my later to become wife.
Okay. Not yet wife.
Not yet wife.
Okay.
But she was, I figured she was the love of my life, and so she was going to school in Colorado, and so we talked, and she was going to go to grad school in Denver, and so I would follow her to Colorado. We'd move to Colorado.
Well, that was a great time to move to Denver. It wasn't hot yet.
No, well, it was a good time. Well, I got out of law school and decided, well, I'm going to take the Texas bar exam anyway, even before I moved to Colorado, just in case. So I took the Texas bar. So I stayed in Austin for most of the summer, and then took the bar exam. I can't remember if it was late July or August. And then
You passed the first time?
I passed the first time.
Good for you.
And went back to Houston, packed up everything I had, and moved to Colorado. Drove to Colorado, and lived in Denver with my wife Monica for 7 or 8 months, I guess, in a little basement apartment in Washington Park, right outside Washington Park in Denver. It was a wonderful little place. And so I couldn't really get a job. I don't know how hard I tried. I couldn't get a job. I didn't figure until I'd passed the Colorado bar. So I started studying for the Colorado bar, and then took that in. I must have taken that in again probably in the summer when it was offered. And almost didn't have to take the Colorado bar because I'd done well enough on the Texas bar. They had a multi-state section. I'd done well enough on that where I shouldn't have had to take the Colorado bar, but Colorado changed their law where you had to take the bar anyway if you were a new lawyer. So I had to learn Colorado law and take their bar exam. So I did that, and then got passed the bar. Found out on Halloween that I'd passed the bar. I remember I was working for a little place that was a long distance company that sold office supplies. I was selling office supplies on the phone. So it was Halloween, so we were dressed. So I was dressed up as a pirate, had a hook on my hand. Got home and opened the mail, and there was my bar results. So I was, completely off the wall that I passed the Colorado bar. So then I ended up getting a couple of job offers. I was offered a job with the Brighton District Attorney's Office, and I was offered a job with the Pueblo County Legal Services Office, which was a civil office. And turned out Brighton was very conservative, but it would have been doing criminal law. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it, and they said, "Yeah, you could come, but you have to shave your beard first off." I had a beard and I had a little bit of a long hair. So to go to work for the Brighton DA, I would have had to toe the line. Look like I was a conservative, or I could go to work for this legal aid office in Pueblo that had the director of the office was just this amazing gentleman who was a civil rights attorney, longtime civil rights attorney. He'd been a professor at the University of Colorado. And it just seemed like a wonderful opportunity to work for this guy or with this guy. So I said, well, I'm moving to Pueblo. So I practiced civil law.
How big was Pueblo then?
Pueblo was about 100,000 people.
Oh, that's sizable.
It was a sizable town. And a lot of people just go through Pueblo because it's kind of it's the gateway to Colorado. It's right on the highway that goes from New Mexico and Texas to Colorado Springs and Denver, up north. But when I moved to Pueblo, and right when I moved there, their steel factory closed. It was a big steel town. So all of a sudden, where I don't know how busy legal services had been before, all of a sudden there were all these people in Pueblo who were indigent, didn't have jobs, and needed legal help. So I was very busy with a general civil practice. Basically, I did a lot of divorces and child custody cases, eviction cases, a lot of people being evicted. I handled some. I got to handle some Social Security fraud cases, and there were some very interesting cases. When I moved, I grew up in Houston, so I wasn't real capable of dealing with cold weather and ice and snow. And when I moved to Denver, they had the coldest Thanksgiving ever. And I remember the first week I was there, I was driving down one of the roads and did a 360 in my car. So but I learned to live with it. I could put up with it. But I worked for legal aid and really enjoyed it. Made a lot of good friends, and the person I was working for, the director, was a wonderful person.
Well, you said something earlier about you wanted to help people.
It
sounds like you were.
I think I was helping a lot of people, and that's what I was looking to do. And it was nice. I didn't have to go out and seek clients. I didn't have to. I didn't really have to keep track of my hours, what I was doing, and we had some very interesting cases.
Can you identify what happened in your earlier life that you had this sense you wanted to help people?
Well, I'm not sure. I always had this feeling that I was wanted to help those people that what am I thinking? They were the people who were discriminated against, and like I said, I grew up in a middle class neighborhood. A lot of my friends had a whole lot of money, but I just couldn't deal. I had a hard time dealing with that because they would kind of hold that over some of the other people. So I kind of shied away from that. And I think also partially I grew up Jewish, and so there was even though I was from the area in Houston I grew up in was a large Jewish population. A large Jewish population is still maybe 10 or 15% of the school, and really didn't feel that discriminated against, but I was aware of it. And so I was always, I think, looking out for the underdog, and just felt like I wanted to look out for them.
Is there, and I don't know your faith that well, is there something in the teachings, is there something in your faith that pushes you in that direction?
Well, I think part of Judaism is you look out for your other people. I think Judaism is the basis of Christianity.
Yeah.
So it's just Christianity, as I understand it, just kind of moved on. Had some other things going on.
But yeah, there's a lot of, in Christianity, there's a lot of take care of the people who need it.
Take care of the people who need it, and so.
At least I think so.
Yeah, and there's a saying in Hebrew is tikkun olam, take care of the world, and so I wanted to take care of the world and take care of people, and I guess in the legal world I was going to look after the people who were in a bad situation and make sure that they got what they were entitled to.
Mm-hmm. So in those early years, is there any particular case that jumps out as influencing you?
Not really. Not that I don't think there was any specific case. I worked on a whole lot of different kind of cases. And like I said, I started out thinking I was going to be a criminal lawyer. At Legal Aid, I was a civil lawyer, and so I was representing people in civil rights type cases, discrimination cases, a lot of just meat and potatoes cases with their cars and divorces and bank accounts. And like I said, growing up in Houston, I really had a hard time with the cold, so I stayed in Pueblo for 3 years and then decided I couldn't take it anymore. my wife and I decided, well, maybe we may want to start a family. And I couldn't see raising kids going, with their, trying to put coats on and they're walking around with all those layers on and me being cold all the time. I mean, I would step outside and I'd turn blue. So we decided to move back to Austin. And so we moved back to Austin without jobs. And my wife got a job with a doctor's office and then ended up at the health center at the university. And I ended up getting a job also with the university as the director of their student attorney's office.
Yeah, I saw that on your LinkedIn account. That's an interesting.
That was an interesting.
What is a student attorney?
Well, the office of the student's attorney was set up as a resource for the students if they got into some kind of legal trouble.
Okay.
Then they could come see me, and I would represent them or advise them of what they could do. Or if they had a civil case, I could represent them as long as it wasn't against the university.
Yeah.
Since
So
the university
what kind of
was
cases
paid.
were there?
Again, those were all civil cases. There were a lot of, it was things students would get in trouble with. So
Right.
I do a lot of towing cases, a lot of landlord-tenant cases. Again, I was doing divorce cases, contracts cases, anything a student could get in trouble with.
The drugs were a big thing in the scene then?
There were some drug cases, but again, most of those are criminal.
Yeah, they're not civil cases.
So I couldn't represent them. I could advise them on what to do.
Okay.
I set up a system where we would get, I had a referral system for all the attorneys in town. So I'd contact attorneys and say, would you like to be on our referral list? And most of them would say yes, and I'd have them fill out a form, and I've created a book so that if a student got into some kind of criminal case, or if they had a case where they needed someone to represent them in a high dollar civil case, where an attorney would work basically for a fee, on a contingency fee. They could look in this book. Attorneys generally would offer some kind of discount for a student for being referred. The office, I didn't take any money. The office didn't take any money for referring them to the attorneys. So the attorneys didn't have to pay anybody for the referral. And the student would get a deal, and they could look over and see, all these different attorneys, and I'd tell them, go and interview them, see if you like them. So I thought that was a real benefit for them. And so I represented students. Again, didn't have to seek any clients. There were plenty, lots of going on. I represented students sometimes against the military. Again, some people would get on scholarships, and then on like ROTC scholarships, and then they'd find out they really could not fulfill the terms of that, and they'd want to get out. So sometimes I'd have to represent people against the military, trying to get them out of their loans, basically. The civil case, but they weren't in the military. Most of them weren't in the military, but they were getting loans for being part of the reserves.
Okay.
And so I'd represent them on those cases, try to get them out of the obligation that they had, see if there was some way to get them out. Oftentimes there were.
So you've talked an awful lot about civil law, and you've done a lot of different things in civil law. Mitch, how did you get appointed to a criminal judgeship?
That's a good question. I'd applied to be a justice of the peace at one point while I was the student's attorney. I decided I thought I would, after working with a lot of judges, I would be a good judge. I would be fair and impartial, and I'd listen to people. So I decided I wanted to be a judge, and so at one point, one of the justices of the peace openings came open in the district that I was, where I lived. So I applied to be one of the justices of the peace. So I interviewed with the county commissioners, and at that time, this is only a theory, at that time one of the commissioners was Bruce Todd, who was county commissioner for Precinct 2, I think. And so I interviewed. I thought I had a very good interview with for Justice of the Peace, but there were 3 people interviewing, and one of them was a woman. And the person who was the Justice of the Peace was a woman, the one who had to retire. And so one of the people on the commissioner's court said, unless the person applying was wearing a skirt, they're not going to be appointed.
Oh.
So I wasn't going to get appointed. So it turned out, even though I was one of the people nominated, I wasn't going to get appointed. But I had a good interview. And then I said, well, why not? I'll go ahead and apply to be a municipal judge.
You weren't willing to wear a skirt?
I wasn't willing. I couldn't wear, back then I couldn't wear a skirt.
You would have had to shave your beard again.
I would have had to shave the beard again. At that point, I'm not sure. I have shaved the beard on. Beards come on and off, but I've had it for 20 years at a time. So yeah, I would have had to shave the beard again.
I'm sorry, I sidetracked you.
You sidetracked me. So what happened when I applied to be a municipal judge? Bruce Todd was the mayor.
Ah, yes.
So I think I'd had a pretty good interview with him when I was applying to be the Justice of the Peace, and then I interviewed with him again when he was the mayor. He was one of the people interviewing the judges, and I think I had another really good interview. So my theory is he just remembered that and felt bad about not appointing me as the Justice of the Peace, so he appointed me as municipal judge. Okay. There were 3 new municipal judges appointed. When I was appointed, there were 3 new municipal judges appointed the 2 years before I was appointed. Back then, the judges were appointed for 2-year terms. So there was basically, when I got appointed, there was a whole new municipal court, all new judges. So I was appointed as a municipal judge in 1994.
Okay.
And served as a municipal judge until the end of 2021. 28 years.
Were you still rolling 2-year terms?
No, that was one. The 2-year terms were pretty hard on me and pretty all the judges, and pretty hard on turns out, I think it was pretty hard on the council also.
Yeah.
Because you'd get appointed, and then they'd almost have to start the reappointment process right away. For the judges, that's not a very long time to plan what you're going to do. I mean, I went through a lot of reappointment process. I interviewed. I remember there was Bruce Todd was the mayor. Kirk Watson was the mayor. I'm not, I've been through a whole lot of mayors.
Yeah.
Finally, I guess probably after 4 or 5 reappointments, so 10, 12 years later, I guess, after I started, the council decided that it was better off to have 4-year terms instead of 2-year terms. State law says you can have a 4-year term unless they change it. So we went to 4-year terms. So then I was had to go through a reappointment process every 4 years. So that was a little better. And when you're raising a family, I mean, one of the things that you want some kind of steady income. Yeah. So I was always every 4 years. I know my wife would get really nervous about, well, what's going to happen if he's not reappointed? What are we going to do? I go, well, I guess I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. Figure out what I'll do. I keep saying, what am I going to do when I grow up? So I remember one mayor, I think it was actually Kirk Watson, told me at one point that being a municipal judge wasn't a career. But for me, it turned out to be a career. Okay. So I enjoyed what I was doing. I thought I would try to listen to people, one thing I think I learned was that people just want to be heard. A lot of people just want to be heard. Even if, the outcome doesn't turn out what they want, they feel okay if they think they've been heard. Sometimes that's hard when you're trying to comply with the rules of evidence in a criminal case. I was handling mostly traffic cases. There were a lot of city ordinance violations. I was dealing with a lot of homeless people. I would deal with a lot of people 18 to 21 who had alcohol issues. And some of the minors who were caught with alcohol, a lot of them just were caught the first time. They didn't really have alcohol problems. Some of them did. Some of them did have alcohol problems. So I would try to get to the bottom and try to figure out what was the proper way to deal with the people. Somebody who, my feeling was somebody who had alcohol one time, if they weren't addicted, they didn't have an alcohol problem, you just kind of let them know that they're violating the law. They really can't do that, and you just kind of deal with them in that manner. If somebody had a problem, if they had a problem with alcohol, then I try to address that, get them the help or treatment that I would think that may be helpful.
Did you ever have experiences where you didn't really like the law?
Oh yeah, there were a lot of the laws that that I didn't really agree with, and there were some of the laws that I didn't think were written very well. Personally, I had some problem with the drug laws that we have. I believe a lot of our drug laws came into being as a way to discriminate against people of color. There are some people that have problems with drugs, and they get addicted. There's some people that are just caught with drugs that, in a situation where they didn't have any way out there, But our drug laws were really started, with the long time ago in the 40s or 50s with the DEA, when they were really just trying to deal with the people of color. It was a way to get them in jail. The people they didn't want to deal with. A lot of the drugs I didn't think were really harmful for people. My background in college, I was a psychology major in college. And I remember one of the classes I took was a psychopharmacology class.
Oh.
And I think I had this professor that was, one of his research projects was giving marijuana to mice. So, he had to get a special dispensation to be able to get the marijuana to give to the mice, but it was a federal grant, so he could do that, federal research project.
That's a very small cigarette.
Very small cigarette. Very small cigarette for the mice. I'm not sure how he gave it to them, but I remember studying. We studied the effects of all these drugs on people, and a lot of the drugs that are addicting really aren't harmful. They're addicting, and if you try to get off of them, they're harmful. But if you don't try to get off of them, they really don't have that many harmful effects on you. But a lot of people, now because they're illegal, people get the drugs and they get addicted. And we weren't doing very much to treat those people. We were putting them in jail instead of getting them treatment. And I've been reading books where they're dealing with drugs in different ways in different parts of the world. There's one country that's completely decriminalized. Almost any drug. If you get addicted, you go get treatment. You don't go to jail. And they found that people actually will get off the drugs themselves when they do that. So I would see a lot of drug cases when I would be working at the jail, and I would, they were caught and committed a crime, but it'd be up to me to set a bond on these people or set bail. So as it turned out, I ended up probably set lower bails on drug cases than many of the other judges. Again, believing people were innocent till proven guilty, I probably set lower bonds on, or lower bail on many of the people than some of the other judges set. I was at least on the low end of most of them. Again, partially probably looking out for the little guy, people that didn't have money. If somebody has a lot of money, if you set the same bail for them as somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of money, the person who has a lot of money can clearly make bail. They're going to get out of jail. Somebody who doesn't have money can't get out of jail, and that may affect their ability to support their families, support themselves, just because they got caught doing something that they probably shouldn't have been doing, but is that enough to disrupt their whole life? So I would say bail and let them, let the other judges deal with them later if they are convicted of the charge. But that didn't always enamor me to the police. So going through, and if somebody, if the police would give me an affidavit that I didn't think met all the requirements for proving that somebody committed probable cause, I wouldn't sign their affidavits. In that case, I was a strict constructionist. If there was a crime committed, they had to show me that clearly there was probable cause they committed it, or I wouldn't sign an affidavit. Tell them if they could fix it, that's fine. But if not, so I was never the police officer's favorite judge.
How did you feel about that?
Well, I always want to be friends with everybody. I always wanted to be friends with everybody, but if I wasn't going to change the way I looked at did something, if I thought the law required a certain, if probable cause required certain elements, if they didn't meet those elements, I wouldn't get to sign an affidavit. And again, they didn't always agree with me on the bonds I set. They wanted much higher bonds. I go, well, the purpose of bail is to make sure somebody's going to show up in court and to protect the community. Make sure the community is protected. If somebody was charged with an offense and I didn't think they were a threat to the community and they'd show up in court, I'd set a relatively small bail amount. And over time, generally bails went up. There was bail inflation over the 28 years I was a judge. I know when I started off, the standard bail for somebody who was driving while intoxicated was $500. Even I would probably set just a run-of-the-mill driving while intoxicated standard bail would go up. For me, would probably be $1,500 after 25, 28 years. But it was even higher than that for many of the other judges.
So do you have any statistics on your record of having people come back to court? Because like you said, bail is to get people coming back to court and show up.
Right.
What do your statistics look like, Mitch?
I don't know what my statistics look like, to tell you the truth. I tried to find that out, but I had a really hard time finding that out. There was just the different computers for the city and the county, and pretrial services just didn't always talk to each other very well.
Yeah.
So even though I would try to find that out, I couldn't find that out. I also was a stickler on trying cases. It turned out I was one of the judges. I was one of the judges that had the highest rate for finding people not guilty.
Okay.
So it's a pretty clear story. Something happened young, that got you on this path,
Yeah.
and you've lived it. And the perspective of what's going on today in our world, can you just kind of give us a little thought of that before we call it an interview today?
I don't know if I'm the big picture guy. I'm not really sure how I tie it in. Again, I'm doing some visiting judge work now, so I try to bring again the ability to just listen to people and again giving those people an opportunity to be heard. I'm hoping that when I talk to my the people I used to work with, make sure that they understand that people just want to be heard. Most of the people I work with, they want to be fair. They want to follow the law. They have different ideas of when someone's guilty or not guilty, but, I think they're doing what they think is right. But I always want to stress that, it is real important to listen to people, because without listening to them, you don't know what they need. If you find somebody guilty, you really, you want to deal with those people. Just giving somebody a fine, somebody who can't pay a fine, having them do community service to satisfy a fine, it's not going to really doesn't really benefit anybody. If you find something that maybe can help change their lives, then you want to do that. That's always trying to do, trying to help people to see the way and, to be safe and be able to go forward.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to cut away from you, and you got any last words? I think we found our title for this segment. People just want to be heard.
Yes. And
Okay.
I love that.
Okay, so let's back to our friend, Mitch Solomon, who does Tai Chi with us. Mitch, we really appreciate you being here, and thank you for taking the time to talk about your service as a judge and an attorney. And, you've been doing this work for a long time. You started in Pueblo and you're still doing it.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing it.
It shows.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to stop the recording. Wow, that was some career. Mitch has just really done a lot for people and for himself, it sounds like. So I hope you'll subscribe to our podcast. Just click down below and you'll find out when we send out a new one. So good luck and have a great day.